The reason why I titled the video this way is out of courtesy. Before I go into specifics, I have to ask you, do you want to know truths about the mass conflicts and confusions and facts that explain problems behind the growing number of issues among us as human beings? Most people don't seem to want to know unless it directly and immediately concerns them. What I'm about to discuss should concern you, for everything that's written down as rules for us to follow affects all of us. After watching a video uploaded by a veteran who had awoken inward quite a few years ago, mentioned a handful of subjects I've been looking into, some I already knew, such as FEMA, fascist FEMA, the fear-mongering propagandist media, and the disgusting corruption of school systems. What he posted and shared on his Twitter account, I first found this video of his. I felt very motivated to do this video soon after I finished watching it. I thought about it the next day, and then I thought about doing a live stream for this, because YouTube hasn't quite died out yet, and I figure I might as well give this a try. This veteran who spoke out, his name is Earl. For his own protection, because it would be easy for him to disappear, along with all his stuff online to disappear, I'm only giving you his first name. He let me know that he was an infantryman in the U.S. Army and U.S. National Guard for 7 years. Earl realized why there has been an ongoing conflict and warfare in foreign countries for the past 15 years since 9/11. 9/11, of course, is still a controversial, sensitive subject that made many question and doubt the U.S. government. Others who believed what media reported and what was in the 9/11 Commission report, of course, either act offended, ridicule the truth movement, or just ignore. I found a copy of the Commission report at my bookstore, but I intend to go into that another time for another video, because that's going to be a complicated can of worms to sort through. I'll leave the link to Earl's video here, so in the description box so you can watch for yourselves. Off the top of his memory, he mentions a bunch of stuff that I've looked into, and in addition to what I've mentioned just earlier, he also mentioned misrepresented and omitted facts from world history that we don't learn in school. While communicating with him after hearing him speak out in his video, as we both understand how dishonest the entire system of this country is, as well as corrupt and twisted things are in this world, I realized how genuine he is. I'll also leave you the link to his blog, where he displays an extensive handful of research he's done. During these past months, I've become observant and sharp-minded on how to tell if someone is for real and who's phony. He's already mentioned about disinformation agents, which is the smoking gun on how to tell which is honest and which person is a con artist. If you haven't checked out the video I did exposing 4 of these government shills on my channel by now, you might want to check that out sometime. It's did it some months ago. It's right over here. And as I share my own research for yourselves to look through, the general collective herd who rely on their televisions more, they won't believe much of anything Earl and some of my other friends, including Anita Hogue, that I mentioned more than once in my videos, and included a video in which she talked on a podcast recording on this political show, the Rocky Stucci show. Hogue is an investigative researcher and whistleblower towards the disturbing, disgusting media corruption, system corruption in schools. The really skeptic and stubborn people won't believe what we explain if they see it on their televisions. If it's not on there, then they won't believe it. One of my older videos exposes government subliminal messages in a short 60s national anthem program. Subliminal messages from U.S. government tyrants found in 60s national anthem video. That's what the title is there. And when I first saw this film, I tried to pick it so I could just pause it to find out the subliminal messages during the transition of the lyrics at the bottom of the page. And I put that there in the video after playing it on normal speed. And then I slowed it down and left directions, simple directions, for you to see those messages. No joke. I saw this and my eyes went wide. I knew I had to do a video about that after first seeing that old film for myself. I'd like to share with you a key fact. Keep this in mind. All warfare is based on deception. The author of the book, The Art of War, by the author, Sun Tzu, had wrote this. Let me find that quote here. All warfare is based on deception. There is no place where espionage is not used. Offer the enemy bait to lure him. Who was Sun Tzu? Get to this bio page about him. Hundreds of years before the birth of Christ, there was a period in China known as the Age of Warring States. This was an age of great conflict and uncertainty as 7 states fought for survival and control of China. For these states to win, they sought out any means of gaining advantage over their opponents. Those with knowledge on strategy and leadership was especially sought after. It was during this time that there arose a general from the state of Qi known as Sun Tzu. His ability to win victories for his warlord gained him fame and power. To hand down the wisdom he had gained from his years of battles, Sun Tzu wrote a book, The Art of War, that became the classic work on strategy in China. His book, which details a complete philosophy on how to decisively defeat one's opponent, has given guidance to military theorists and generals throughout the ages. In The Art of War, military readers found a holistic approach to strategy that was powerful and deep. It is truly a masterpiece on strategy. As the former U.S. Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Colin Powell, said, "I've read the Chinese classic The Art of War written by Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu has studied for hundreds of years. He continues to give inspiration to soldiers and politicians, so every American soldier in the Army knows of his works. We require our soldiers to read it." Today, Sun Tzu's appeal has extended beyond the military realm into the world of business, because business, by definition, deals with competition. Sun Tzu's principles are ideally suited to competitive business situations, because business, like warfare, is a contest of wills, dynamic and fast-paced, based on both morale and machines, and deals with the effective and efficient use of scarce resources. Many business people across the globe have found value in Sun Tzu's teachings. The part about Tzu's strategies being used in businesses is very true. I found a college textbook at my bookstore months ago. I'll show you the front cover of that. Strategic Management, a Competitive Advantage Approach, 14th edition by Fred R. David. I took this photo myself, and I've been keeping this book for reference purposes. I took a picture of the preface here. I'd like to read the first paragraph to you. The world is dramatically different than it was 2 years ago. The global economic recovery has created a business environment that is quite different and more complex than it was when the previous edition of this text was published. Thousands of businesses are now flourishing, and consumers are again buying discretionary products. Tight credit markets remain, as do high unemployment and high food prices, but millions of new entrepreneurs have entered the business world globally. Democracy is taking hold in the Middle East, and China has replaced Japan as the world's second largest in gross domestic product. Business firms today are leaner and meaner than ever, so gaining and sustaining competitive advantage is harder than ever. Intense price competition, rapid technological change, and social networking have altered marketing to its core. Opportunities and threats abound today all over the world, including Africa. This new edition reveals how to conduct effective strategic planning in this new world order. Those last 3 words in that paragraph are quite significant, because it's been repeated by politicians and other textbooks. It's even on it's even mentioned on the history section of the student handouts website. for schools. Next, I want to show you is the company that did this textbook. Pearson. The same company that did the behavioral observation for students in schools phone app. This is a screenshot from the page on iTunes. I'll leave you a link to the whole page so you can see for yourself. And if you Google search for the phone app's user guide PDF, you'll find out how it works. I brought out the college textbook on strategic management. Right here. It's big. It's got some weight to it. Excerpts from Sun Tzu's Art of War writings are in this, such as, "War is a matter of vital importance to the state, a matter of life or death, the road either to survival or ruin. Hence it is imperative that it be studied thoroughly. Warfare is based on deception, as I said earlier. When near the enemy, make it seem that you are far away. When far away, make it seem that you are near. Hold out baits to lure the enemy. Strike the enemy when he is in disorder. Avoid the enemy when he is stronger. If your opponent is of choleric temper, try to irritate him. If he is arrogant, try to encourage his egotism. If enemy troops are well prepared after reorganization, try to wear them down. If they are united, try to sow dissension among them. Attack the enemy where he is unprepared, and appear where you are not expected. These are the keys to victory for a strategist. It is not possible to formulate them in detail beforehand. The art of using troops is this: when 10 to the enemy's 1 surround him, when 5 times his strength attack him, if double his strength divide him, if equally matched you may engage him with some good plan, if weaker be capable of withdrawing, and if all respects unequal be capable of eluding him." Yeah, and those are some that's listed on here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 16 in all that's mentioned on this table in this textbook. I would have taken a picture and brought it up for you to read along, but the text would appear too small for you to see. Yeah, warfare is not a pleasant topic to talk about. Warlords and megalomaniacs would enjoy warfare. Many of us feel obligated to pay taxes for this, for the military, and that we have to allow government to take U.S. troops to go after these supposed bad guys, these radical religious nuts, for the sake of protecting our freedoms that we have. The soldiers out there themselves believe in this also, who are still out there. Some of them, if not all of them. Not morally in the slightest does what many are told to believe and Sun Tzu's war strategies make any sense together. And paying taxes isn't different from extortion. Actually, taxation is the legal term for extortion. To extort is to obtain something by coercive means through threats and intimidation. Yeah, that's the definition I found in a Webster's dictionary. Look up the definition online to confirm for yourselves if you want. Really, too many of us have to pay up or have our possessions taken away or get locked up in a cage, also known as going to prison. Yeah, so you gotta stop and think about all of this, just sort it through your mind. This, to maintain the freedoms we have, really, if this rule, this law, is something we've been told all our lives is for the good of the whole and necessary for us to stay civilized, then why must it require the threat of force? The answer is simply this: it's not genuinely good. And taxation is, after all, theft. And I have something to help explain why it is theft. This article, good article that I found. Almost got it. Here we go. Off of journalisticrevolution.com. I'm just going to read the top part of this article and then leave the link to the whole article for you to read. Taxation is theft. All the taxes. Many people will vote to increase taxation, so they are voluntarily giving money to the state. However, they are violating the rights of those who do not want to voluntarily give money to the state for whatever issue is deemed important that year. That is why taxation is theft. There are many different types of taxation: income tax, state and local taxes, payroll tax, unemployment tax, foreign tax, value-added tax, property tax, and eminent domain, real estate tax, sales tax, gas tax, excise tax, user fees, sin taxes, capital gains tax, corporate tax, luxury taxes. The government gets you coming, going, on the toilet, sleeping, and even when you die. Inheritance and estate taxes. Remember, each tax has laws and regulations with lots of exceptions and loopholes. Well, if you were smart to pay off politicians with lobbyists. If a law has a loophole, then it is not efficient nor effective, so the law must be removed or fixed. So with this, in addition to, again, that war is based on deception, all warfare, it contradicts with the faith-based principles we've been taught all our lives. The news on TV, it isn't what I call real news, and logically and through evidence, what we are told ever since we were kids, ever since I was a kid, it doesn't make sense. Next, I want to show you a clip by Christopher Cuomo off of CNN that I found on the WikiLeaks Twitter. WikiLeaks. Found it. CNN falsely states that it's unlawful for the public, but not for CNN, to research the WikiLeaks emails. Come on, can I play this video or what? Alright, it's loading.
Also interesting to remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us. And in full disclosure, let's take a look at what is in there and what it means. Joining us now, CN.
Now I want to show you his Twitter account, because I noticed something really interesting about it. Alright, see the banner here. Here's him on the right, and there's some type of smoke bomb going off. And I guess it's at night because there's a street lamp in the background. And here we have the militarized police on the left, and his avatar icon, quiet please. This seems very Orwellian to me. That is, if you are familiar with George Orwell's 1984, and which is a novel about a newspaper man living in a totalitarian society. And no one is allowed independent thinking, and everybody is a collective whole, and there's the big brother, and And everything is in a perpetual, everywhere around the world there's a perpetual state of warfare. There's a black and white version of this movie, the original black and white version, that can be found on YouTube, the whole movie. There's actually 3 versions of it in all, but I found the black and white and watched it. And how they got Winston, the main character, to stop seeing his girlfriend was that they controlled him through his self-centered fear, the one of the Big Brother guys. And Winston was terrified of rats, so they used that fear against him. And not a happy ending. Not a happy ending by the end of the movie. I won't spoil it for you. Kumo probably succeeded in his scare tactic to get the most gullible viewers to avoid looking through the corruption in the emails. Oh no, I shouldn't disobey. Well, a lot who are aware of this messed up system, and the tyrants themselves who are behind it, passing along their agendas, have already looked at the emails. I've been reading and viewing a bunch of other stuff on this thorough corruption, about the convoluted politicians and corporations, about the Department of Education, corruption within them, and private organizations, and stuff about their bootlicking media. Whenever a whistleblower speaks out to expose the corruption within the U.S., example, Edward Snowden, who discovered the NSA's domestic spying on U.S. American citizens, people like him were called a criminal and labeled a traitor, and he had to flee the country. He had to leave. And anyone, they also call anyone who criticize on the true political madness outside of their narratives a, quote, conspiracy theorist, a nut, or a potential threat, or even they toss the label homegrown terrorist. If you love your country should love you too. But how can you trust someone who doesn't trust you? Did you know that the negative connotation on the term conspiracy theorist has existed since the 60s, when people doubted the official lamestream media story and the commission report about JFK's assassination? There's a document on it called Concerning the Warren Commission Report. I think I bookmarked that. Yeah, here it is. I found it through here on the globalresearch.ca. Countering criticism of the Warren Commission report. CIA document. Number hashtag 1035-960. are concerned. From the day of President Kennedy's assassination on, there has been speculation and the responsibility for his murder, although this was stemmed for a time by the Warren Commission report, which appeared at the end of September 1964. Various writers have now had time to scan the Commission's published report and documents for new pretexts for questioning, and there has been a new wave of books and articles criticizing the Commission's findings. In most cases, the critics have speculated as to the existence of some kind of conspiracy, and often they have implied that the Commission itself was involved. Presumably, as a result of the increasing challenge to the Warren Commission's report, a public opinion poll recently indicated that 46% of the American public did not think that Harvey Lee Oswald acted alone, while more than half of those polled thought that the Commission had left some questions unresolved. Doubtless polls abroad would show similar or possibly similar adverse results. And here's the list of, I'll scroll down a bit to further here to the actions that they decided to take. We do not recommend that discussion of the assassination question be initiated where it is not already taken place. Where discussion is active, business addresses are requested. To discuss the publicity problem with and friendly elite contacts, especially politicians and editors, pointing out that the Warren Commission made as thorough an investigation as humanly possible, that the charges of the critics are without serious foundation, and that further speculative discussion only plays into the hands of the opposition. Point also that parts of the conspiracy talk appear to be deliberately generated by communist propagandists. Urge them to use their influence to discourage unfounded and irresponsible speculation. And right here, going a little bit further, in private media discussions not directed at any particular writer or in attacking publications which may be yet forthcoming, the allowing arguments should be useful. No significant new evidence has emerged which the Commission did not consider. The assassination is sometimes compared by Joachim Jostin and Bertrand Russell with the Dreyfus case. However, unlike that case, the attack on the Warren Commission have produced no new evidence, no new culprits have been convincingly identified, and there is no agreement among the critics. Critics usually overvalue particular items and ignore others. This is on section 4b. They tend to place more emphasis on the recollections of individual witnesses, which are less reliable and more divergent, and hence more handholds for criticism, and less on ballistics, autopsy, and photographic evidence. A close examination of the Commission's records will usually show that the conflicting eyewitness accounts are quoted out of context or were discarded by the Commission for good and sufficient reason. 4C. Conspiracy on the large scale often would be impossible to conceal in the United States, especially since informants could expect to receive large royalties, etc. Notes that Robert Kennedy, Attorney General at the time, and John F. Kennedy's brother would be the last man to overlook or conceal any conspiracy. And as one reviewer pointed out, Congressman Gerald R. Ford would hardly have held his tongue for the sake of the Democratic administration, and Senator Russell would have had every political interest in exposing any misdeeds on the part of Chief Justice Warren. A conspirator, moreover, would hardly choose a location for a shooting where so much depended on conditions beyond his control. The route, the speed of the cars, the moving target, the risk that the assassin would be discovered. A group of wealthy conspirators could have arranged much more secure conditions. And they even list critics have often been enticed by a form of intellectual pride. They light on some theory and fall in love with it. They also scoff at the commission because it did not always answer every question with a flat decision one way or the other. Actually, the makeup of the commission and its staff was an excellent safeguard against overcommitment to any one theory or against any illicit transformation of probabilities into certainties. And here, such vague accusations that more than 10 people have died mysteriously can always be explained in some natural way. The individuals concerned have, for the most part, died of natural causes. Where possible, counter speculation by encouraging reference to the Commission report itself. Open-minded foreign readers should still be impressed by the care, thoroughness, objectivity, and speed with which the Commission worked. And now you know where the term conspiracy theory first came from, well, the negative connotation of it. Yep, so that term has been weaponized to sway the thinking of the public, to not look into anything outside their source, anything outside of what they say. Yeah, there's a very decent documentary that I'll leave a link to in the description box titled The Conspiracy Theory Conspiracy. Even though drama king shill Alex Jones from InfoWars is mentioned in it, it's still an overall good video. When it comes to lying con artists, they, in the media and the most talented illusionists, they don't give out their secrets. Do you ever notice how quick reporters in TV media and some alternative media are to name call anyone who questions these people, these reporter people who start with, in their corporate spin, some people say, or some experts say. I'll show you. can scroll down here. Let me just close some of these things. I think it was called The Hype or something like that. The song Hype. Oh, here we go, right here. I just didn't recognize it at first. I sort of overlooked it by accident. Whoops. But I found it. Turn this up a bit so you can hear it. Oh, come on. It's acting up, I'm sorry. I think the online monitors are... I think the monitors are trying to delay me. They're online monitor people that just hack and try to cover up the tracks. Oh, come on. Yeah. Check that out later. Yeah, I'm gonna have to edit this. Live stream's just taking so long. Yeah, I think the monitors don't want me to display the reporters saying that. Whatever. I'll just open this. Open edge. I don't care. Okay.
Some people say that'd be a pretty good choice. Bring in the Hispanic vote.
I think some people say, he's posturing.
Some people say, and excuse me, I'll get to you, Joe, in just a second, but some people say that you may be setting up Sharpton for a run against Hillary in 2006 in the Senate.
Some people say that this might undermine what the U.S. troops are doing there.
Some people say John Kerry has some similarities to an earlier Massachusetts politician.
Some people say in light of what's happened with the oil for food program.
Some people say supported by Iran.
Some say, I've heard a couple people say,
Some say that it's a sour grapes book. Some people say it's just too violent. There's too much blood.
Some people say.
some people say,
Well, some people say it.
Some people say.
Some say it.
Some people say. Some are saying.
Some people say it.
There's some people who say something, if not major, has already happened.
Those are his words.
some people say it's exploitive. What do you say to that?
They should.
Some people say, some experts say. What people? What experts? I reveal my sources. I often encourage those who watch my content to look at things for themselves and to educate themselves. They don't. I already know there's quite a bunch they won't mention. Really important information people really need to know about. Truth that they probably won't want to hear, but they need to hear. Yeah, media reporters aren't going to interview Anita Hogue, Earl, or even myself because these cronies of the state would prefer to keep as many people in the dark as they can because truth is the enemy of the state. Media prostitutes are interested in their own careers and wealth than telling you the truth. Those who had experience within the CIA work alongside media programs. Here's another familiar face of CNN, Anderson Cooper. I got a picture on that. Little introduction picture here. I don't know what is causing. Damn it. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Anderson Cooper. Hi, I'm Anderson Cooper. I'm a direct descendant and heir to the Vanderbilts, the second wealthiest family in American history. Before I became the face of CNN, I was a secret society at Yale University called the Manuscript Society. While at Yale, I worked for the CIA and became a participant in Operation Mockingbird. Now I spread disinformation through the mainstream media to manipulate the thoughts and beliefs of the public to further the CIA's agenda. It's even mentioned in Anderson's blog that he temporarily worked for the CIA. Blog. CIA. My summer job nearly 20 years ago. He posted this on September 6th in 2006. So, an interesting thing happened today. A website has published an article saying that I once worked for the CIA, and that it would be Radar Online. who did that article. CNN received a call from the website yesterday informing us that they were going to publish the story. They didn't have all their facts straight, and I received some questions about it, so I decided to just write this blog post, hoping to get the facts out there. As a college student, I had a number of summer jobs and internships, including working at the CIA. Keep in mind, we are talking about nearly 20 years ago. The Bangles' Walk Like an Egyptian was on the radio. I was 19 years old, and like many college students, I was curious about a variety of careers. There was a flyer for the CIA in my college career counseling office, and I applied for a summer job. I was a political science major and was interested in serving my country. For a couple months over the course of 2 summers, I worked at the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. There are reporters who've been in the military, others who've interned on the Capitol Hill while they were in college. I know the CIA may sound more exotic and mysterious, but it was actually pretty bureaucratic and mundane, he says. At least a little bit of what I saw of it. A little bit, right. By the end of the second summer, I realized it was not a place I wanted to work after college. I wonder why. I've told all my employers about it over the years, but they have chosen not to talk about it publicly. Ooh. When I began to travel overseas to war zones as a reporter, I realized that some jihadists might not understand what people do for summer jobs in college. Doesn't mean they make a career out of it. Oh yeah, and in case you're interested, after I graduated college, I briefly worked as a waiter, but I decided not to make a career out of that job either. Alright. Still? I hope the video will be okay after I'm done with this whole thing. Alright. Truth out. Anderson Cooper. Truth dash. Where is it? Here we go. Still recording. Okay. Go away. Go away, Ed. I don't want to submit to your newsletter. Not interested. No thanks. Come on. This was posted last year on Truth Out. I'll leave a link to you for this. I'll just read a bit of this here. Anderson Cooper opposing illegal CIA wars is, quote, unelectable. A key reason that the U.S. has so many wars is that big U.S. media have a strong pro-war, pro-empire bias. You rarely see big U.S. media badgering a politician for supporting a war that turned out to be a catastrophe, but it's commonplace for big U.S. media to badger politicians for opposing wars, even catastrophic ones. CNN journalist Anderson Cooper is a perfect example of this phenomenon. And there's a transcript here of the first Democratic debate with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton and O'Malley and Jim Webb. Yeah, Anderson Cooper badgering Bernie Sanders at the first democratic debate for opposing the CIA's illegal war on Nicaragua in the 1980s. And surprisingly, while looking through that transcript, they mentioned Edward Snowden. Okay, where was I here? All mainstream media, even Fox News, who claims to be fair and balanced, yeah, right, has this underlying message. A message that they don't really say. Don't listen to people who speak things we don't cover outside of our narratives. They're not important. They're nuts. There's nothing to say about whatever it is they know. The conspiracy virus is a contagious one. Take that, Greg Gutfeld. And anyone who gets it becomes a Looney Tune and a potential threat to society. Only we know what's going on in this world. Anyone looking elsewhere besides our television stations, newspapers, and our websites and social media doesn't know anything. Our humble and selfless deity, called our government, would never turn against its American people. Right, and Hillary Clinton is such a saint. The fact that she's been investigated and that was a whole goose chase. 2 time over wild goose chases, figuratively speaking, is proof, along with her laughing at what she was being questioned about concerning her emails in Benghazi. I've already looked into some of her other immoral deeds she's done and done nothing about. I've read a book by Dick Morris called Rewriting History, in which he picks apart the false things that he found in her book called Living History, and pointed out some of the bad things she'd done. And Dick Morris was an advisor for both of the Clintons for 20 years. And he used to be a Fox News political analyst. Yeah, and also you won't hear any lamestream sources recall over the time when a bunch of people in Waco, Texas, the Branch Davidian family, this religious group, a bunch of people were burned to death inside their church building. Men, women, and children. And this was back when Bill Clinton was still president in the 90s. Government agents, FBI agents, did this, and Hillary Clinton did nothing to even try to prevent it from happening. Not even Attorney General Janet Reno. And this is some of a lot of things they would rather have people forget about concerning the Clintons. Okay, the Clintons have quite a history of very immoral deeds. They're so wrong. They're basically a crime family. And Hillary's allowed to run for president. She's the Democratic nominee. Yeah, I'm going to link you in the description box to the 2 documentaries I've seen about what happened in Waco. about this tragedy. And I'm not saying I'm a Trump supporter either. Okay? And he was never an outsider to begin with. Oh, look. Back in January 2005, newlyweds Donald Trump Sr. and Melania Trump with Hillary Rodham Clinton and Bill Clinton at their reception held at the Mar-a-Lago Club in Palm Beach. A comedian who spoke the truth way back when, some years back, said, "It's a big club, and we are not in the big club." Look at this. His daughter dated a Rothschild. And if you know nothing about the Rothschilds, you should research them. Okay? One of the richest families in the world. You should really know about them. I'll have to cover them in another video. Yeah. Oh, lying stream media, you're so swell. The indoctrination abomination that is Common Core is totally safe and doesn't violate the privacies of children and their families. David Coleman, narrow-minded businessman who's currently the president of the College Board, was the right guy to be chosen as head architect in putting the curriculums together. Let's listen to him in his own words.
The fifth point is about writing. Do people know the two most popular forms of writing in the American high school today? Sorry. Texting, someone says, I don't think that's for credit, though, yet. But I would say that, as someone said, it is personal writing. It is either the exposition of a personal opinion, or it is the presentation of a personal narrative. The only problem, forgive me for saying this so bluntly, the only problem with those two forms of writing is as you grow up in this world, you realize people really don't give a shit about what you feel or what you think.
Nice guy. There's more.
It's going to be a privilege to hear tonight. He has been involved in virtually every step of setting the national standards, and he doesn't have a single credential for it. He's never taught in an elementary school, I think. I actually don't know. He's never edited a scholarly journal, but I think he has written scholarly papers, and a variety of other things that, you know, everybody here has done some of. He hasn't done. You told me you didn't want to do a standard. So he has living with the fruits of that for the next 5 years. So listen carefully.
You know, you'd think someone with Lauren's experience would understand you never tell the truth when...
What did that? What did that? What?
You know, you'd think someone with Lauren's experience would understand you never tell the truth when you're introducing someone.
What a sleazeball.
Talking about qualifications. I actually think it's really important to try to base what I'm about to say to you on evidence I share with you rather than on the sands of my qualifications. So if I ask you or talk to you about doing something, it should be evident that it makes sense to you to do because I have no other authority. Is it these standards are worthy of nothing if the assessments built on them are not worthy of teaching to? Period. This is quite a demanding charge, I might add to you, because it has within it the kind of statement, you know, oh, the standards were just fine, but the real work begins now in defining the assessment, which, if you were involved in the standards, is a slightly exhausting statement to make. But let's be rather clear. We're at the start of something here, and its promise, our top priority as an organization, I'll tell you a little bit more about our organization, is to do our darndest to ensure that the assessment is worthy of your time, is worthy of imitation. It was Lauren who propounded the great rule that I think is a statement of reality, though not a pretty one, which is teachers will teach towards the test. There is no force strong enough on this earth to prevent that. There's no amount of hand-waving, there's no amount of saying they teach the standards, not the test, we don't do that here, whatever. So with that in mind, I'm about to jump in, but I'm just going to say one word about my own organization, which is Student Achievement Partners. Student Achievement Partners, all you need to know about us are a couple of things. One is we're composed of that collection of unqualified people, collection of unqualified people, collection of unqualified people.
Oh boy. Are those really words for a genuine educator to say? I don't think so. I'm not saying everyone's untrustworthy. It's absurdly false to believe that everyone is trustworthy. There will always be corrupt people. The point I want to make here is this. One of the most dangerous misconceptions that so many have had hardwired into their heads since for as long as I can remember. The belief that obedience to authority is a virtue. Doing as you're told is not the same as being a good person. What if someone's in charge, who's allowed to be in charge of you, tells you to do something bad? Would you decide, well, I've got to follow orders, I have to obey the law, or would you disobey? How much would you be able to tolerate and accept? Would there be a line you draw in the sand? Would there come a time for you to have to say no to someone on the behalf of the authorities? A skeptic might start to think, but without government. Those who are reluctant to admit how immoral the government is and how it should have never existed. Those who write the rules on pieces of paper backed by threats of aggressive force you believe in and think you know, they look good in suits. They tell us that they care and want to keep us safe and those nice things that we like to hear. Yet, can you recall a time in which they weren't forceful and were about protecting individual rights, individual freedoms? Whenever people decide to go protest in the streets or sign petitions saying, "We don't want this, we voted for you and you promised you wouldn't," for example, raise higher taxes or whatever it is that what issue it is that they are protesting about. They demand, and that's it, there's no or else. So the politicians ignore them. And cops can gather together and get violent on protesters who aren't hurting anyone. The very core of those who represent government, the very essence of government, is violence. Those who dress up nice and who advertise on TV on your side or working for you, they're lying. They work for their corporation bosses and governments who they're in cahoots with, alongside these two-faced sociopaths, to misinform you and keep you passive. The mainstream exists to distract you, help condition you for their agendas behind the scenes that they don't talk about, but they can be researched online though. And they also keep you dumb. There's dumb TV shows, music that promotes reckless behavior. And have you seen photos of Miley Cyrus in concert? She looks so messed up. And yet she was allowed to be a coach on The Voice. And there are songs about butts that are popular. J-Lo's song, and there's that old one, "I look big butts that I cannot buy, you others can't deny." And there's gangster rap, and there are also some stupid movies. Add that to government-controlled school curriculums. The National Governors Association is a group of lobbyists that have more career branches for economics and homeland security than education. I'll leave a link for you to the career branches for you to see for yourself from their website. Both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, they're phonies. They're two-faced. All the people who tune in and pay attention to the elections, they only know their masks. They don't know their true selves. It doesn't matter which one of them gets on the throne in the Oval Office with the power to control the nukes and the drones. Participation in a very corrupt system legitimizes your own servitude, your own subjugation. The media puppets who promote the hype about elections, it's propaganda. Listen to this. This drives my point. This is to help drive my point across what I'm saying here.
walk into this room at your own risk, because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the superstates that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
The 99% really has no voice in our country. Going back to the founding fathers, the whole idea of all men being created equal really meant only the wealthy. Real freedom
That's
has always
Rothschild.
belonged to the wealthy, or those willing to do the bidding of the wealthy. The 99%, well, they only have the illusion of a vote meaning something. Voting encourages participation in a corrupt system. It's now a matter of public record that the game is rigged. Voting gives sanction to an illegitimate government. The elections are all frauds, but they want you to vote to give them moral sanction for their theft of your property and God-given rights. There is no American government by we the people. Some have called it an enemy force in occupation. I agree with that statement. The government is becoming increasingly desperate to take away your freedoms, for they know Americans are awakening to the fraud. The only people that benefit from an election are those associated with the oligarchies that rule America. They would not allow anyone to get into office that would change their agenda. JFK got his head blown off for not going along.
Yep.
If you vote, you will wind up with the same enemy force in occupation, regardless of who you support for office. Unfortunately, the average American voter can tell you more about sports or celebrities than how our government actually works. They say you have a duty to vote, or you can't complain if you don't vote. Go ahead, sheeple. Keep falling for the lies. Just keep in mind, you have the right to vote for which master they choose for you.
That's George Carlin, who I quoted earlier, that it's a big club. And we are not in the big club. I know that there are still so many who don't want to know this or believe in this. I didn't want to either at first. I still wish this wasn't true. Yet, when I found out that something was really wrong, when I first learned about fascist FEMA, I questioned. I looked into it. I investigated. Before finding out this truth about the elections, I had already figured out the tyrant's mindset. Most in the gang called government don't see us as human. Not in the slightest. The global elite most certainly don't. If they did, then they wouldn't focus on ruling over us and lying to us, making us pay taxes and using propaganda and fear-mongering in the lamestream. And world oppression never dies because of them. How do you think tyrants like Hitler and Stalin and Mao and Lenin were able to wield their power over people in the various foreign countries in the past. They first posed as noble and said that they would care about them, that they would defend them to gain their trust before the fear-mongering started. And who cares if it's just one guy with a mustache? It's the people who believed that they were figures of authority. The people believed them. And that's why the wars happened. And here today in USA, it's basically this, it's pretty much the same. I show these articles and these playlists and my videos that reveal a lot to help you understand who our real enemies are. And they're not the guys wearing turbans. They're not the ISIS boogeymen, because our enemies are already here. And they put ISIS, CIA creation, part America, part Turkey, part Saudi Arabia. They created ISIS. Our real enemies wear suits and ties, and Earl, in his video, will confirm that. Okay, about ISIS, alright? These people who chant Allahu Akbar, why don't, why? Something just doesn't add up with them. Our real enemies, again, they wear suits and ties, and pantsuits in Hillary's case. The vicious, violent tyrants, they don't care about world peace. They never cared about bringing world peace, because that's not their goal. It's not in their ultimate goal. Violence does not bring world peace. Violence brings more violence. Duh. Sorry, it's so obvious, that fact right there. Yeah, so check out everything that I list in the description box. And my advice to you is to take all mainstream media with a grain of salt. Don't buy into any of the international propaganda, and just don't. I encourage you to comment. I'd like to hear from you. Expect another video from me soon. Take care. Spread the word. People need to wake up.